Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of my analysis of Satanism, a beginner's guide to the religious worship of Satan and demons. In this episode we'll be analyzing the next 5 chapters and sharing my thoughts. Obviously I'm not going to be analyzing this book line by line, because that'd take way too long, and would make for an incredibly boring video, so I'll just try to summarize the longer chapters to make the video a little shorter. I know it's been quite a while since I've uploaded a video, I've been pretty busy lately, but expect more videos in the future. I'm not expecting this video to do the best, because of my recent ban from Discord, so I have no real way of advertising my videos to other Satanists. So share this video around if you're feeling generous, and without any further ado, let's get into it. Chapter 6. Am I a Satanist? In this chapter Brother Nero discusses how you can tell if you're a Satanist, and how being interested in darkness or horror movies does not make you a Satanist. You must pledge allegiance to Satan to be a Satanist. Simply having interest in Satanism does not make you one, you must have genuine devotion, which is a topic I've spoken about in my video about Theistic Satanism. Being drawn to Satan and in responding is how you figure it out. As Brother Nero outlines in this chapter, you need the dedication to look in the face of Satan and call him God. He continues by pointing out that there are those who are distinctly the real deal and pretenders. There is no in-between, you are either accepted by Satan or you are not. Not everyone is accepted by Satan, sometimes because their devotion isn't out of genuine respect, sometimes because they just simply aren't mature enough to understand the seriousness of the commitments they are trying to make. He points out that being a Satanist isn't a matter of choice. Satanist isn't just a label you slap onto yourself. You need a genuine relationship with Satan, and that the reason you never hear about cultivating the relationship with Satan is because the majority of Satanists are moles with a hard on for left-wing politics, such as the Satanic temple. He also talks about how Satan and his demons do not connect with people in the over-the-top Hollywood way. It is by subtle mental messages and dreams in the vast majority of cases. Chapter 7. The importance of standing up for yourself and Satan. In this chapter Brother Nero talks about how important standing up for our satanic beliefs truly is. In the first chapter he points out a problem many long-term practicing Satanists face. After a while, we tend to forget we are Satanists. Metaphorically, of course, we start putting Satanism as our last priority. He gives a good example of this problem. We get too caught up in our lives, our jobs or occupations. Satanism comes after everything else, and this is what I believe makes us such a weak religion. We forget we are Satanists 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and an eternity after that. Our life should not outweigh our devotion. We will be a Satanist forever. Our issues will be minuscule in the face of infinity. He also outlines that Satanism is a lifestyle as much as it is a religious practice. It should never be an afterthought. If you're a Satanist, you should be living your life by satanic philosophy, not only applying that philosophy when convenient. He continues by commenting on the satanic groups which base their philosophy on atheism, pointing out that they're almost always only concerned with material wealth and not the spiritual aspects of actual Satanism. Just as me and many other Satanists, Brother Nero believes that if you take away the spiritual aspect, it is no longer Satanism. It may look like Satanism, and they may use our terminology, but they are absolutely not Satanists by any standard. In the next few paragraphs Brother Nero talks about people who hide their practice from their family. To summarize it briefly, since it is a long explanation, Brother Nero expresses his belief that hiding your practice from your friends and family implies you are ashamed of your beliefs. You are hiding aspects of yourself to appease others, which in itself isn't satanic. It is against the satanic beliefs to be ashamed of your faith. If you was truly a Satanist who embraces satanic philosophy you simply wouldn't care. You would have come to terms with the social bias which comes with being a Satanist. Next Brother Nero talks about the lack of devotion among Satanists and how much more devoted Christians are. He points this out as the source of weakness in the satanic community. He uses martyrdom as an example. How many Satanists do you know which you can truly say they would die for their beliefs? Not many, but there have been thousands of Christians who have died for their beliefs. We should be treating this as a lifestyle. Being a Satanist should define you. It isn't something you should just drop and pick back up when convenient. You are a Satanist 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and an eternity after that. You shouldn't let life get in the way of your practice. Chapter 8. Satanism, Family and Children. This chapter has a few segments to it. I will point it out when we pass them. This first one touches on doing satanic baptisms on newborn children, which Brother Nero strongly disagrees with, as do I, even though I don't personally believe in it. It isn't up to the parent if a child will grow up to be a Satanist. It's a personal choice that not everyone wants to take, and that's okay. Children will naturally mirror a parent's behavior regardless, even if it's just a phase where they take interest. You can't force it, but you can expose them to satanic ideas and practice, maybe in prayer or in ritual. If they decide to take up that practice in their older years, is completely up to them. Teaching a child this in their early years will allow them to view Satan without society's Christian prejudice, so if they do take up the practice in their older years, they will have a much better knowledge of the belief than others who become Satanists. Which are other points Brother Nero touches on in this segment. Although he does not agree with doing satanic baptisms on newborn children, he does believe doing a satanic blessing is completely fine. Which is reasonable. A blessing doesn't dedicate the child to anything. He gives a few examples of ways you can expose your child to Satanism. One of these was by turning books like Kidabajula and turning them into children's stories, and another was by making tarot cards with planets on them to teach the attributes of each. It's simple ways to expose them to occult ideas at an early age without forcing children to any faith. Allowing children to participate in rituals, such as daily rituals like prayer, is also a great way to expose them to satanic ideas and practice. The next segment is called Dealing with Relatives Who Are Without. It's not a very long segment, I'll do a summary. He says that when raising children, if you need someone to babysit them, pick someone neutral rather than a Christian who might try to expose them to Christian ideas. Which is something I agree with. This segment is called Satanic Children in School. Again, this is a pretty short segment, so I'll summarize it briefly. He says that although in public schools they are technically not allowed to shove Christianity down your children's throat, teachers are way more than willing to show their bias and do it regardless. Even in private schools this is an issue. He believes that homeschooling is probably the best option for Satanists who don't want their child being taught teachings alternative to Satanism. He also says that if you are going to send your children to a public school, to teach them an alternative name for Satan, such as Baphomet, because if your child is going around talking about Satan, you might get a call from Child Protective Services, and if you don't want the government investigating you, then you'd be better off just not doing that. The next segment is about abortion, and again it's really short, so the summary said he believes no children conceived by Satanists should be aborted, even if they're the product of rape. I couldn't disagree more, but we'll leave it for the end. This is the last segment of this chapter, and it's about adoption. Oh my, this one is spicy. It's short, but this is probably the most arranged shit I have ever heard. It starts off normal as follows. He believes that adopted children should be raised in satanic religion, if they want to. As Satan can influence anyone regardless if they're raised by Satanists. Now this is where it gets a little loopy. The reason this group emphasizes satanic bloodline is because they believe people with two satanic parents have heightened spiritual awareness to those who don't, and will have an easier time connecting to Satan and demons. He also believes Satanists to be a race, not just a religion. Which is just wacky to say the least. Chapter 9, Teenage Satanists. In the first bit of this chapter, Brother Nero talks about teenage Covens. He believes teenage Covens should not be run by teenage Satanists, as teenage Satanists usually don't have the knowledge of Satanism and its philosophy to run one. Teenagers often don't care about how their actions reflect the satanic community, and since most teenage Covens are run by people who have at most practiced 2 to 3 years, it's not uncommon for these teens to get in trouble and tar the rest of the community with their actions. An adult Satanist can guide them away from dishonoring the community, instead help them become true Satanists and continuing our tradition for the next generation. The next segment of this chapter is called Teenagers with Families Hostile to Satanism. In this segment he gives advice to teens with families who don't allow Satanism. In every open Satanist journey, in the majority of cases, you're going to have to be open to a family member about it, and they may try to stray you from it, especially if you're living with them. He gives a story of a 15-year-old as an example. He was going to run away because his family didn't allow him to practice Satanism, something I can guarantee most of us had done ourselves. He told the kids to just stick it out, because he could move out in 3 years' time, and if he truly believed in his practice he could wait it out. Which is good advice, I'd say. He goes on to talk about rituals in households not friendly to Satanism. He emphasizes that you don't need ritual equipment. Prayer can suffice for maintaining a relationship with Satan. The next segment is called Advice for Teens whose parents force them to attend church, and it's short, so I'll just give you a summary. He says you should look at it as an opportunity to learn about the enemy and get better at debating with them, to use their own beliefs against them. Which again is top-notch advice. Chapter 10, Solitary Practice versus Joining a Coven. This chapter is 4 pages long, so again I'll just summarize. He argues that joining a coven is better than solitary practice because it creates a sense of camaraderie and a good emotional bond between Satanists, but there's a likely chance you'll get involved with sketchy groups because most Satanists join groups not to further the satanic religion but for their own personal goals. My thoughts so far. I'm starting to see why many Satanists don't like this book. Comparing Satanists to a race is just a really silly comparison, and the views on abortion might be a bit of a deterrent for the more easily upset. As I said earlier, I don't agree, but I don't really see anything too bad. Obviously anyone who genuinely believes this is an absolute dumbass. It's on par with Joy of Satan Ministries beliefs, but it's nothing new for Satanism. Thank you for watching and see you next time.